Russian special services have been instructed to organize terrorist attacks in several regions of the Russian Federation during the May 9th celebrations, reports the international intelligence community, informed Napalm.
The FSB is a strong, reliable, and effective link in the national security system.
Russians plan to kill and maim themselves to blame Ukraine and mobilize the population for war.
This is a well-known scheme. It was used many times by the Soviet Union as well. Let's recall the story of the execution of Polish officers during the Second World War. Yes, this was also presented as a false flag operation.
Preliminarily, at a high level within the structure of Russian security agencies, instructions were distributed to organize terrorist attacks in several regions of the Russian Federation. Among them, cities like Khabarovsk and Ulan-Ude are being considered.
Why Khabarovsk? It's very simple. Because in Khabarovsk, there are still quite a few people who remember the arrest of the elected governor, Sergei Furgal. And accordingly, anti-Moscow sentiments in Khabarovsk are very, very strong. And in Ulan-Ude, you can't really say that Moscow is greatly loved. Therefore, finding people there who would be ready to do something unpleasant for Moscow is quite easy.
However, it is also reported that all efforts are being made to ensure the parade in Moscow goes off without incidents.
There are many foreign guests. And Putin wants to demonstrate that he is fully in control of the situation. And therefore, there should be no unauthorized demonstrations in Moscow. And even the provocations that they themselves might stage, they are afraid to do in Moscow, simply because some foreign guests might see it, which must not be allowed under any circumstances.
After the Easter truce, which the Russians did not adhere to along the entire front line, Putin announced another truce for the celebration by the occupiers on May 9th. It is supposed to start at midnight on May 8th and last until midnight on May 11th.
This primarily concerns the relationship between Putin and Trump after the meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump in Rome. We understand that a certain shift, at least in relations, definitely occurred. And accordingly, we immediately heard statements from Trump that were much more, let's say, well, not pro-Ukrainian, but closer to Ukraine's position than what we had heard so far.
British intelligence believes that the three-day truce announced by the Kremlin dictator for the celebration of May 9th aims to demonstrate Russia's supposed openness to some agreements and to limit Ukraine in long-range strikes, while not worsening its positions on the front. Also, according to the expert, the so-called truce could be used by the occupiers to redeploy troops and improve their positions for the war.
Saudi Arabia is the largest producer and exporter of oil. More than 10 million barrels are extracted here daily. The country is the informal leader of OPEC, capable of crashing the market with a single decision. And now, for the first time in 5 years, the Saudis are changing the rules of the game.
Saudi Arabia set a course last year to increase its share in oil production. We are witnessing a certain scandalous situation within the OPEC plus countries where production quotas are not being adhered to.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
There is panic on the London Ice Exchange. For the first time in recent weeks, the brand is going into a prolonged dive. This is a blow to all commodity economies, but especially to those whose budgets rely heavily on oil. Today, the price of Brent oil is breaking the psychological mark of less than $60, specifically $59.44 per barrel. These are not just numbers. This is a political signal and an economic verdict primarily for Russians.
Saudi Arabia, especially in the last few months, has effectively signaled that if other participants, including the Russian Federation, do not adhere to the established frameworks, which were also agreed upon in April, then the Saudis intend to increase their market share.
The Russian economy is directly dependent on black gold. Unofficially, up to 35% of the federal budget is formed from export revenue. And now this revenue is dwindling. Cheap oil means less foreign currency, a weaker ruble, and higher inflation. In a country with an import-dependent industry, this is equivalent to a chain reaction.
This is currently hitting the brand's value very hard. But as we understand, other brands are tied to the Brent oil brand, such as WTI and Urals, respectively. The Russian brand, which usually makes up 89% of the Brent brand's value. Therefore, what we are seeing now is a decrease and a further decrease in the Urals brand below $50 per barrel of oil. And this goes directly against the position and needs of the Russian authorities.
And for the Russian economy, which is already worn out by Western sanctions, this is a serious blow. If the price of the Urals brand falls below $44 per barrel, this amount will be below the cost of production.
We are already seeing a revision of the Russian federal budget in terms of increasing the projected deficit by the end of the year by almost three times, and this amounts to trillions of rubles. Thus, Russia is facing financial problems where the ongoing active military campaign against Ukraine does not align with the decline in global oil prices. It is clear that in the medium term, this could very seriously affect budgetary resilience. Currently, it is clear that compensation is coming from the National Wealth Fund, but there are also serious problems with liquid assets there, which can be quickly redirected to federal needs.
Behind this decision is not only economics, but also geopolitics. Donald Trump is demanding that OPEC Plus lower fuel prices in exchange for political bonuses and Washington's return to the previous level of cooperation. Riyadh seems to have decided to side with the states, receiving in return political protection, weapons, and most importantly, the right to energy dominance. At the same time, Saudi Arabia is anxiously watching Iran's return to the market. The lifting of some sanctions, supported by the White House, could lead to increased competition. In just a few days, the OPEC Plus meeting could become a point of no return. According to traders, the Saudis are preparing a decision for another production surge, but this time in June. And this will be the announcement of a full-scale price war, where Russia will not be a player but a food target.